Let's do that. First of all, I got banners. Do you want me to say anything at the bottom with the banner? Um,
You're good. Just go what you got. I'm
okay,
good.
so I'm gonna edit some stuff. I'm gonna forward people to patreon.com LARRAPY podcast. That's one of the things I'm gonna include in there
Okay.
because eventually I'm in the process of posting all of the podcast content to the Patreon site. Uh, um, so I'm gonna do that real quick here. Patreon.com and then timer off and then just scroll across ticker. Let's see how it rolls up. So and then show and let's see if it rolls. If the camera rolls, it does. Okay, so that's Patreon. Look at I'm messing up the thing here. So bear with me here.
You're good.
Let's see here. I'm gonna edit patreon.com/LARRAPY podcast. So for those that are seeing this feed on TikTok, I'm just starting to interview with my friend who probably I would call mentor friends. You know, that's giving some respect to your age there.
I love it.
Like I don't know whether based on my age level I'm qualified to be in your friend category, but I definitely look up to you. I see what you're doing out there. And I definitely appreciate your energy. I can feel this father like spirit, even though you're not my dad.
I love it, Larry. I love it.
So the people on TikTok can't see you, so I'm just gonna mention your name real quick. Your name is
Okay.
Dr. Mike Durnin. Um, and you are. Give me your framework of your title, your official title, as far as what you do.
Whoa, great question. I have too many titles to go with it. I help people more than anything else go from knowing what is right, what is good for the common good,
Okay.
and help them to do it. And if they do it long enough and help them continue to do it,
Hmm.
now they become it.
Okay.
So that I see as my main purpose in life is helping transform lives
Okay.
to go from knowing to doing to actually being.
Okay. Um, you know, so who's your target? Who are as far as your target audience, or who are the individuals that you're looking to speak to most? Who does that apply to?
I think first and foremost, I really enjoy young professionals, and I would include, those juniors, seniors in high school and college age students in there as well,
Okay.
to give them a framework so they can become the best version of themselves, so they can transform themselves to be the best version going forward. And then I also, it's helpful, and I've found success working with individuals who seem to have stalled in their lives. They're going down the highway, and the gas tank is going empty,
Okay.
and how to reframe, how to fill that tank back up again so
Mhm.
that they can go forward in a uh, more opportunistic type of manner, so they can further develop themselves, further transform themselves, and probably more importantly, as they get to that stage, how can they also transform the lives of others? Because many people end up in leadership roles,
Mhm.
and you know all they do is they fall back on what maybe somebody else they experienced in life, or
Mhm.
the quote unquote, this is the way we always have done it.
Mhm.
And they need to step out of that mindset, even though and they know that that's not the right mindset. But how do they do that? And
So,
so I get them back to their foundations for leading their own lives, and then helping lead out the lives of others if applicable.
uh, and just so the audience knows, give me your back. Give them a little bit of your background as far as your experience, that sort of like it, yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Sure. I spent my career in higher education.
Mhm,
I spent, close to 40 years where I was a teacher, a professor
mhm,
at the university level. I was a college football coach.
mhm,
And I ended my career more in administration where I was overseeing, I kind of got out of the athletic world per se and was involved with student life from all aspects of student life, where I had that kind of cabinet position within a university. And so that was a big learning part of my career, was just going through all those experiences, dealing with young people on a day-to-day basis, dealing with colleagues and those who were I was working alongside, and actually those who were reporting to me. And all those experiences allowed me to continue what I love doing, which is helping people transform lives. And I do that now, basically through keynote talks,
mhm.
working one-on-one with people, doing some workshops, retreats. That's what I did, and that's what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Um, you know, I know you to be a man of faith. Um, how has faith or church played a role in your life?
Great question. You know, faith was part of our family, from day one, and it has always been there. And like most of us who are faith people, we've
Mhm,
ridden the ebbs and flows. At times it's really strong. At times we probably question or doubt
mhm,
aspects of it. But it's always there. And I've always found that when I get myself back into that framework where
mhm.
faith is at the core value of what I do, it's not that perfection comes, but I feel like I'm living a life more fulfilled. And that that to me is important. And it's one of the reasons why at the age of 60 I went back and ended up enrolling, and I've completed my doctorate of ministry.
Yeah.
Was to say this is an important part, and so I still do some church retreats, church talks in between, as well as what I do just on a pure leadership standpoint.
Um, you know, on the topic of faith, you know, um, in my personal life and even with my clients, um, there is this constant challenge of maintaining consistency in the faith. It is an ongoing topic for some of my clients. I'm a mental health counselor, and I really do stamp on that I'm a Christian mental health counselor because I'm really trying to reinforce faith. And one of the challenges for me personally is maintaining that consistency and discipline in faith. Um, have you ever struggled to have you ever struggled in your faith? You talked about that a little bit a couple seconds ago. And
Oh,
then how does one maintain that continuity in faith?
great question. And like I said, I think we all struggle at times. None of us are perfect.
Yeah.
There is no such thing as a perfect human being.
Okay.
And one of the aspects of my life that really helps is a consistency on a daily basis to start the day in prayer.
Mm,
So when I do that, it becomes that fuel, it becomes that backbone for the rest of my day. And so that to me is probably the biggest aspect, like even this morning, it's a simple 15 to 20 minutes sitting silently in prayer,
mhm,
reading some scripture, and taking a moment to pause and learn from that experience, and that fuels me for the rest of the day. And that's how I do it. And what one of the best compliments I ever got, Larry, was I got done giving a talk, and it was in the quote unquote secular framework. And afterwards, a gentleman came up to me, goes, "Okay, can I ask you a personal question?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Sure. No problem. What do you want to know?" He goes, "You're a man of faith, are you not?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Yes, I am." He goes, "Even though," and his comment was, "Even though you never mentioned that throughout your entire talk,
Yeah.
the words you use and how you expressed yourself, I could tell that."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then that to me was verification for how you and I live our lives.
Yeah.
We're men of faith, and it should resonate no matter what we're saying, how we're saying it. That should come out.
Yeah. I feel like mine comes out accidentally. Yours is very much intentional.
I don't know about that, Larry.
No, but I say that because as a, I've suffered loss, and and we go through ups and downs, and this goes into the bigger question of, have you ever lost your faith? And I think this is huge. Have you not? And we talk about lose. Not, I don't want to say lose faith, but you know what I mean. It's like, man, sometimes my faith wavers. Sometimes I get so enmeshed in my emotions, or I get so enmeshed in the turmoil of my human experience that I sometimes go through an identity crisis almost. And I wonder if I wonder if you've experienced that aspect where you sort of like got a little bit lost in. I call it going through identity crisis. I don't even call it losing your faith. I think we sometimes forget who we are in God when we go through.
I completely agree. Been there, done that.
Yeah.
There is no doubt. There's been periods of my life where I have wavered, when I've gotten off that path. The Bible has a great word for it. It's called sin.
Right.
And thankfully, and this is where I did a post this morning on LinkedIn and talked about none of us lead our own lives and lead the lives of others without the help of others.
Yeah.
And I've been blessed through the years to have people who this is, I think, God working in great ways. All of a sudden somebody else steps in my life, or somebody reappears, or somebody says something that says, to me, it says, "Mike, wake up, get back on this path."
Yes.
And, I think that's because we're human beings. We're going to need those other people. And that we wavered, that we went off this path. That's just part of living life. And there's a way to get back on. And so let's be grateful for that. Let's give ourselves some grace for that wavering, and know that we have a way to get back on the path.
Yeah. So, what I hear you saying is, it is so important, along this journey, to help us maintain that faith, to have a support circle, or someone to help hold us accountable, help encourage us back into, help us remember who we are, in God.
Exactly. I think, there's a lot of research that talks about, I'm going to put it first in a secular term.
Yeah.
There's a lot of now more small groups or cohorts of CEOs, the big time executives who are in different industries, different companies, and they meet together maybe once a month, once a quarter, and they take a half a day, and they share. They let it out. They become vulnerable. Okay. And they help each other to move forward in their lives. And so you need some mentorship in that arena. But we also need mentorship in the spiritual world. And so if we have these individuals, and it could be 1, 2, 3, 4 people, it doesn't matter, who you make time for, and be vulnerable with them, and share what is going on in our lives, that can be a powerful avenue to help us become a better version of ourselves. So we need that coaching in the secular world for our businesses. We need that coaching in a world for that spiritual, fulfillment. We need coaching. It's no different than starting up an exercise program. You need people helping you, give you direction to help you can continue going forward. Yeah. And when we have those people in our lives, and when we empower them and are vulnerable with them, we're going to do so much better.
Yeah, when you were talking, it reminded me of something that is becoming more near and dear to me, is really needing to focus, bring in and focus on a circle of people who are rooting on you.
Yeah.
Who are rooting on you to be successful. How invaluable is that? And I think that, God has created us to be creatures of relationship. So there's this necessity for us to feed off of one another in order to build not only ourselves, but I think that we even help build each other financially, across the board, that spiritual wealth and material wealth, there's that aspect, of needing community, needing relationship in order to grow in any aspect of our lives. So, that's the question. That's the question I sometimes ask myself, is who's rooting on me?
Yeah. I think, there was a post today on LinkedIn that talked about, the great athletes will never fault you for getting in the arena, for giving it to continue going forward.
Yeah.
The millionaires and are never going to fault somebody and criticize somebody for stepping in the arena of, I'm going to become an entrepreneur. I'm going to start this business. I'm going to give this a try.
Yeah.
Why are they doing that? Because they've been there themselves. They know what it takes. The person who is criticizing you, those critics out there, those are the ones that aren't willing to step in the arena. They're not, they're sitting on the outside, not doing it. And we need to somehow, that's the noise we need to get rid of. Let's embrace those who are willing to do the things 100%. We are striving to do.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. Horse blinders, like focus on the energy that's going to allow you to grow.
Yeah.
The idea that we have something flawed with ourselves and that we need that pointed out is great and all. But I think that there's so much noise out there in our environment that tells us that we're not enough. I don't know whether it does us too much benefit.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
To embrace all that noise. Like, it's so important to make sure we balance out the positive with the negative, the constructive criticism with the advent of hope. And I like to think in general, even psychologically, we grow from our resiliencies, not from our weaknesses.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And you think about it, you're talking about feedback there, Larry. Feedback's not there to say who is right. Feedback is there to make a situation or individual better.
Yeah.
And when we do feedback that is clear, is actionable, is done respectfully and with empathy, which is, if you take the letters I just gave you, that spells out the word care.
Nice.
Okay? And when we do it in that manner, with the idea, the goal is to make the situation better. And that could be an individual or a company or whatever the case may be. When we do it in that manner, great growth occurs.
I like that. You repeat that acronym again, as it relates to the way we should engage with one another in order to build one another up through constructive criticism. What's the acronyms again?
Okay, so it's the word care, CARE.
CARE.
And let's make sure we do things, say it in a way that is clear, actionable, okay, respectful, and empathetic.
I love it.
And when you do that, so it's all right. I'm coaching somebody to throw a football.
Uh-huh.
All right. I want to be clear in terms of my instructions. I want to give them steps, something actionable to work on. I want the elbow to go up another 3 inches.
Right.
Okay. So it's actionable. All right. We're going to throw this a tighter spiral with more velocity. We need to, here's the action. Take your elbow, get that up 3 more inches higher. Okay.
Yeah.
But I do in such a way that is respectful.
Yep.
Okay. And with empathy, because I know not everybody is at that quote unquote NFL throwing ability.
Yep.
So if we take that mindset in terms of no matter what we're working with somebody on, I believe you got a better chance for success.
I like it. If you got a notepad, if you're on TikTok and TikTok's listening to this indirectly here, I just want to hone in on that, because I think that is so important when we're communicating just about anything in life, or trying to problem solve anything in life. I like that acronym. I have my own sort of philosophical framework, but I like this. This is very simple, clear cut, a nice little what do you call it, mnemonic type of device to help remember how to approach talking to someone when you want to help them, but you don't want them to feel the criticism. You want them to feel the constructivism behind what you're trying to tell them is care. So I got actionable, I got respectful, and I got empathy. What was the first? The clear, actionable, respectful, and with empathy. I love it. Care. That acronym care there. So you're right. Go ahead.
Well, and Larry, like I've said, I think before on your show, it's like, I'm just a dumb old football coach from many years. So I need to keep things really simple for me to understand.
Oh, I love it, man. The simpler the better. You ever heard the acronym KISS? Keep it simple and stupid. Keep it simple and stupid. Oh, 100%. I think that's the greatest side of intelligence, is when we can break down very complex things into simple forms. There, I get a little bit miffed. Sometimes it's one of the things I have to start. I find myself like saying, I need to, even when I'm doing interviews, I'm like, I got to subtly give a subtle, correction on the back end. There's like, look, it's okay for you to explain your intelligence, but if your intelligence is speaking far beyond the audience, I need you to scale it back and dumb it down a little bit, because the true expression of intelligence is not in how eloquent or deep or complex you speak of something. It is really how simple, how well you can simplify that so that the average person can understand it. So the communication, yeah,
I 100% agree, Larry.
Yeah, but I agree with you. It's also expression. It's an expression of me being a simpleton.
That's okay. That's okay.
I can relate to that. One of the things I love about you, Mr. Durnin, is you've got this. There is something about you, like similar that person saw in you. I can see it in you too. There's an essence about you that is open-minded, that even in your presentation right now, it just says, I care about you, very present in the moment. And I appreciate that. Just giving your flowers out loud there. So
thank you. And here is something that, one of the aspects I believe is so important in our lives. It's one of the foundational pillars that I look to teach, is we need to continue learning. Learning is a lifetime endeavor. It's a lifestyle. But one of the things another post I was reading today, it talked about emotional residue.
Okay. Emotional residue.
And you think about, so often we might not remember the exact words somebody shared with us, but we will remember how they made us feel. Yeah.
I believe that's a quote from Maya Angelou too.
And, and it made so much sense, because that emotional residue stays with us.
That's right.
Just like the residue from a fire stays there. The flame might be out, but we still have the remembrance. And, it's so important. The presence we bring to others is key. I talk about the sacred presence we provide others. And how do we do that? Well, in today's world, it's very simple. All right. Let's say we're out to dinner with somebody. That could be a spouse, a good friend, doesn't matter. All right. Is our presence there for that person, or is our presence in our phone? Are we sitting there
Mhm.
scrolling our phone, checking messages? And it's not to say there might not be an emergency that comes up that we need to handle,
Yeah.
okay, off our phone. But if we're truly having dinner with somebody, our presence should be with that person or those people at the table.
Yeah.
And we need to continually hone in on that presence, that we are giving to each other. And
Yeah.
there are ways we can work to do that better. We're not going to be perfect at this, but we should always be striving to learn how to create a better presence for others.
Yeah, you give some solid operative words there. You mentioned care. You mentioned emotional residue. I'm locking in here. You mentioned sacred presence. When you speak of sacred presence, I'm reminded of that. Is it Miriam? That poem by Miriam.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm personally striving to across the board. Whatever I'm doing, is that last part where she's like, that in what she say at the end of it, at the end of the poem, that in as we are liberated from our own fears, our presence automatically liberates others. Something along that edge there.
Yes, exactly. Powerful statement right there.
Powerful statement.
Powerful.
Yeah. That as we step out on faith and we do the impossible for our lives, and we live in that.
Yep.
We live in that liberates others. And I know we talked about our fathers on this podcast,
Yeah.
probably 1 or 2 sessions ago, and just looking at their lives, and particularly your dad's life. But I think the same thing. I was reflecting on that in one of my posts about my father's life. I mean, I was like, man, when you think about it, I was like, in his fearlessness, your dad's fearlessness, we sort of that impacts us, and it helps manufacture even our interaction today.
Yeah.
When you talk about sacred presence, what is the implementation of that? Give me some examples of how we can use our presence to impact others.
Well, I think first and foremost is how we listen to others.
Okay.
And we need to listen not only with our ears, but we need to listen with our eyes and our minds and our souls and our hearts, and be aware of that person we are in conversation with. And as we're doing that, I talk a lot about listening like a sponge. So you're soaking it all in.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the aspects I try to help people with is have them listen to the conversation, not to say here's how you're going to respond, but listen and say, what follow-up questions do you want to ask now?
Mm-hmm.
So as you listen to somebody, it's like, oh, explain that more to me.
Mm-hmm.
Or how are you defining this word? You mentioned you were feeling neglected. How do you find that? What was something that really kind of brought that word to your mind? And so what you're doing is providing a presence for what they are saying by how you are following up with questions, the aspect of learning more about their situation. And when you do that, how do you, people are going to feel your presence, because you're not there to judge. You're not there to just simply respond. You're there to understand their situation better. And, it's like you're to listen to somebody talk, and all of a sudden their eyes are dropping all the time. Well, they're getting into a vulnerable state because they're starting to share aspects that are not easy to share. So recognize that.
Yeah.
Hey, Sally, I know this is tough. Thank you for sharing so much of that. Can you explain this a little bit more? Well, you just provided some simple words and a simple follow-up, I believe, just exudes with presence. as opposed to, well, here's what I think you should do.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
now you've turned your presence back to yourself as opposed to them.
Right. Yeah. One of the ways I frame that even in my psych head is like what I call exploratory conversations, rather than, you know, rather than advice, flat out advice giving, um, or exploratory learning versus debate. But that's a whole nother conversation.
Yep.
But yeah, I love it. The other thing that stood out to me, so you talk about how to have sacred presence, listening to others, and following up with questions. That is how you have sacred presence with them. When you talked about listening to others, I threw with my background, I threw in the back of my head what they call active listening. Are you familiar with that terminology? It's like you're listening to what they're saying, and you're also listening to how they're projecting themselves within what they're saying.
Absolutely. I love the aspect of active listening, and that's what you're doing. You're actively,
Mhm.
when you're active in exercise program,
Mhm.
you're not focused on something else. You're doing that exercise. When you're
Yeah.
actively listening, you're doing the listening, all aspects of it. You're engaging all aspects of your body and all the senses you have if
Yeah.
you're truly actively listening.
Um, you are a man of high value, right?
Try to be. Try to be. I'm not always
You're
successful.
you are a man of great integrity. Um, has your integrity ever been challenged?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Been in situations, throughout my career, it'll give you a case, in the coaching world, all of a sudden somebody got a hold of some film that we weren't really supposed to have.
Mm.
Okay. And you're challenged by the integrity. Well, we really want to win this game. This could be really helpful.
Mm.
But the integrity says, no, that's not the right way to do it, though.
Mm-hmm.
And so you battle that. And of course, now you're part of the staff. You got other people. And so what do you do with that?
Yeah.
Do you just put it by the side and don't look at it at all? Or
Mm.
do you look at it? And if you truly believe in your values and you want to be a person of integrity, you don't do that. You don't look at it. You just say, hey, we ended up with it, but that's not the right way of doing it. And we're going to go forward in this manner. But that's a struggle because at the same time, you're in a coaching profession. And unfortunately, so many times you're going to be judged by the external scoreboard, not your internal scoreboard.
Right.
And so that's a struggle. And I know of other people that have been involved with those struggles in similar situations. And I believe if we truly are focused on the internal scoreboard of our lives, which is and relates to our integrity and the type of person we are, and how do we want to be remembered?
Mm-hmm.
We need to know that's how we make decisions is what's important in our internal scoreboards as opposed to the external scoreboards. And we'll take our chances. We might lose the external scoreboard, but let's do our best not to lose the internal scoreboard.
Have you ever suffered a great loss because you held your integrity?
Sure.
It can be no to Mike.
Yeah, no, the situation I'm just speaking about. I probably lost communication with what had been a good friend during that time.
Mm.
And they disagreed wholeheartedly with decision making about, no, I'm not watching that. I'm not going to use that film. But it was to me, it was the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
And, I have made decisions where, no, this is how I'm going to go about. And yeah, I ended up being fired as a football coach at one point in my career.
Mm.
It happens. And,
Yeah.
but I can look back and say, well, there's certain aspects I know I could have done better. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not going to blame others. I'm going to look first to myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's that mirror test. You got to be able to look in the mirror and first look at yourself and say, what could I have done better? But there were aspects within that I know were part of their decision that, okay, if you're going to make that decision because of that,
right,
I'm going to live with it. I'm going to go forward. I'm going to go onward in my life knowing that I did that the right way.
Right. It's such a tough thing there. I definitely think you got to be led. You got to, when you get to points like when things are at risk, you really got to be, in your prayer closet or really in solid alignment and communication with God, and letting your gut sort of like convict you a little bit and say, no, I know you want to, but you can't do it. Have you ever gotten to that? Have you ever got? And this might speak to the moment there. But have you ever gotten to that point where you were like, "This will really be beneficial to me," but this Holy Spirit in me is like, "Man, you don't want to do that." There's that conviction. Have you ever felt that heavy conviction that says, "No, do the right thing"? I mean, what does conviction look like for you on your end? I guess.
Well, conviction, I think, is a fuel that allows us to, on a daily basis, make our decisions with our values in mind. And it's the habits that we do. I truly believe conviction is a sign of, it is represented by our habits. Our habits many times are really visible by how we schedule our day.
Okay.
And what do we do? What do we not sacrifice? For me, I just, I spoke earlier today about, how do I start my morning? Starting a silent prayer. It's like a non-negotiable for me. And what you're doing is your conviction is your discipline. And discipline, when you look at the Latin definition of discipline, is to teach. Well, our conviction, our discipline is teaching us how to better live our lives. And when we do that for the common good, when our values are for the common good, that's what our conviction is doing, is giving us the discipline to do these habits, to do these things, and to make our choices based upon our values, so that we become a better version of ourselves.
This is like leading down this route of for some reason the word lying stands out. And I guess I want to play around with it a little bit, this conversation a little bit. Sometimes, like, some of my clients sometimes struggle to tell the truth. Like I've had sort of cases where part of the issue is they struggle to tell the truth because telling the truth involved a heavy consequence associated with it. So people end up become, and it becomes this manifestation of a childhood experience, right? Where they lied to their parents because they were trying to avoid a severe consequence. And so that becomes their methodology and philosophy going into their adult years. And it seems like no matter how good of a person they try to be, there's always this anxiety or fear around saying the truth and saying the truth with a potential consequence. Give me your thoughts on that. Like, is there a circumstance where you would lie to save your life? I'm gonna hit you hard.
There you go. Well, I've been in some discussions before. It's like, all right, Larry, I'm going to tell you a lie. Okay, I want you to meet me. All right, we're going to have coffee, at this place, but then I'm going to sidetrack you, and I'm going to take you to this surprise party for you. All right.
Okay.
So
it's called a white lie.
All right. So there's a little bit of lying in there. All right. I'm just kind of fudging on some things. I'm not sure that's necessarily the worst thing in the world for somebody to be engaged with. But I do believe it's so important for us to be as truthful as possible at all times. Yes, there are going to be consequences. Okay. But the rewards later in life at a later time are going to be so much greater. And again, it's that discipline to teach ourselves to do the right thing, to have the right habits. And we're not going to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to, in the TV show Ted Lasso, they talked about, there's a quote in there. I hope either all of us or none of us are judged by the weakness of one moment, but by the, how we continue to go forward in our lives.
Yeah.
And I paraphrase that, but it's so important to understand. I think this is why, you're working with others all the time, Larry, that you're dealing with this. As I look at that and I hear you say that, this is why we need to have some grace for others and grace for ourselves to say we're not perfect. But what do we need to do to go forward? Unless you can't change anything in the past, but how we go forward. And yes, there might be consequences, but those consequences, that's a part of life. And so let's continue to go onward. And I think this is where you probably help out people in a great way, is you're helping them. All right, how do you deal with the consequences now? And how do you keep that framework? How do we make this a learning situation?
Yeah, it sometimes becomes a point of impossibility on my end there. It becomes a point of it's in your hands.
Yep.
It's a great topic because all of us are challenged to all of us at some point in time are going to be challenged to tell the truth. And with the consequence associated with it, and or to avoid telling a lie because we don't want to get caught up in a situation where we're going to have to, back up that lie. With my clients who struggle with lying, one of the first things that I try to do is process why they lie, what emotions that coming from.
Yeah.
And then it becomes a way, this becomes difficult in therapy because you're weighing out the pros and cons. And sometimes the pain of telling the truth is far greater than the reward of telling the lie. And it becomes one of those things where like I almost be like, hands off. Probably, ask yourself, what should you do? And you hope it leads down to a point of conviction, but for somebody who has a pattern of lying or a habit of lying, it becomes hard to break that habit because telling the truth, telling those moments there, those are momentary. It's like, how do you practice telling the truth? So there's that framework. I guess technically you could problem solve that because there technically is an answer to that. It's how do I have a more honest life? Yeah. Well, I learned to be transparent I learned to have a more transparent, vulnerable conversations with the people that are in front of me. I put myself in situations of integrity where I don't allow myself to put myself in situations of question. And if it does, I make sure that that when I get to that point where I have to make a decision, that I'm expressing it ahead of time and getting ahead of the bump rather than being behind the curve, right? Yeah. So those are some small subtle ways, thinking out loud.
Yeah, those are great. Yeah. And the habit, the power of habit. There was a great book written, and when you look to break habits that are not for the common good, what you need to try to do is, according to the book, and I love the research on this, is to strengthen your other habits.
Mm-hmm. Resiliency, right?
And so that in essence, they become more powerful than the bad habits. The bad habits actually never go away. But what you do is you strengthen your other habits so they become the focus in
That's
your
right.
life as opposed to the bad habits. It's I talk about I'm a recovering workaholic. And so I had the habit of, my mind and my efforts went to my work from the second I woke up until who knows whenever I went to bed. Okay. And that's still in me. It always will be. But what I've tried to do is establish some better habits now that can squelch that bad habit of being a workaholic. And so it's the idea of, all right, if I have to set my watch to it, I set my watch and say, okay, at this time or these times every day, I'm going to take a 15-minute break, go for a walk, literally look at the skyline, look at, something in nature, or just read something that has nothing to do with what I'm working on, so that I can I'm challenging myself and working on a habit to step away from work. And, of course, now it's easier a little bit now because I don't work, quote unquote, full time, but I'm still actively involved. And that habit, that workaholic habit, if I'm not careful, will overtake those other good habits if I'm not careful. And in your work, I know you've probably worked with people who have gone through alcoholism. The recovering alcoholic, that habit of drinking is still there. You've just overtaken other habits and made them be more powerful so that they don't go back to that other habit.
There, there's the framework of building up the other habits, and there's the framework of sort of out of sight, out of mind. That the more you can stop doing it, the less power it has over you, right?
Yep.
So there's this, and not only that, but as it relates to alcohol or anything, whether it be food or anything, addiction to food or anything else, the less contact you have as far as time, it helps create even a stronger sensitivity when it actually is in front of you or when you do taste it. So you hope that the combination of those two, it has less power, and that the stimulus and that the stimulus of it being around you when you are confronted with it is more powerful because you created so much distance from it. So there's that element, with addiction. It's a lot, not to go too far down that rabbit hole, but just to speak to that audience, just in case they're listening, if somebody is struggling with alcoholism, one of the things that I tell them is you have to have a strong daily routine, and you need to identify what is that strongly daily routine that helps combat the necessity to want to drink alcoholism. And it is forcing yourself to focus on your schedule. I would say having a routine and having a schedule as it pertains to a strong routine within that schedule, a daily routine within that schedule, is a way to, I would say, almost bulletproof yourself from drinking at that point. If you and then it's just one day at a time. Like, that's what people who are addicted to something, they'll tell you, which I think is life in general, personally speaking. It doesn't matter what we're taking this thing one day at a time, part of your coaching, part of your mentorship is helping people accomplish their goals, I'm assuming, right?
Absolutely.
Right. So I'm going to make me a case. I'm going to make me a case example here. I'm going to experiment on your skill set here.
Okay.
I've got a dilemma. I'm trying to finish writing my ebooks, right?
Okay.
And how would you help me navigate through that space? I'm a professional. I'm coming to Mike. I'm saying, Mike, I've got this major blockage. There is an anxiety around writing these ebooks. I got all this knowledge. How would you help me? How would you help me accomplish my goal?
Great question. When it comes to writing, and any type of study. So you need to be able to sit down.
Mhm.
One of the aspects that Pomodoro is a methodology of writing
Okay.
that means, all right, you spend, and it doesn't matter whether you write a single word down.
What is it called though? It's called
Pomodoro.
Spell that.
PomomomomoRodo, I think it is, something like that. I have to look it up myself. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. And what I would recommend is don't worry about writing a single word, but sit down for 25 minutes where turn off everything else. You turn off your computer, turn off whatever, have paper down there, and just start as it comes to you, jot some notes down. Start organizing it.
Right.
After 25 minutes, walk away.
Okay.
Okay. Spend 5 minutes. It doesn't matter. Go get a snack, whatever the case may be.
Okay.
After 5 minutes, you come back to the same thing. Take another 25 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. And just continue on that piece of paper. After another 25 minutes, I tell people, set a timer. This is how I wrote my doctoral dissertation. Okay. And now take another 5-minute break.
Okay.
And then come back and do one more segment of 25 minutes.
Okay.
There's your day. There's day one. Come back day two, do the same thing.
Okay.
And now different thoughts are going to come in mind. Oh, I want to organize. I want to put this in there. Great. Write it down. But go no more than 25-minute segments.
Okay.
Where all you do is think about and don't. And one of the aspects, and this was taught to me, don't think you have to put X amount of words down the paper during that 25 minutes. It could be one word or one sentence. Okay. And let that just keep soaking in. But over time, you're training your mind to shut everything else out and now just focus strictly on your book, on the books. Okay. Don't try to write it all down in one fell swoop. But over time, all of a sudden now you're teaching yourselves that habit of this is my writing time.
Yeah.
And there I go. And that would be my first recommendation.
Yeah, I like it.
Like that. It's a very concentrated way of looking at the process.
Yeah, on similar topics, I usually tell my clients to like break whatever you're trying to do down in like to 1,000 steps.
There you go.
Rather than trying to make it one big step. Like I'm trying to write this book. Well, what does that look like every single day?
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about.
think about a ladder.
Yeah.
A ladder.
Right.
You want to use a ladder to get out of the hole, so to speak.
Right.
Well, you don't start at the bottom and just jump right to the top.
Right.
You do it one step at a time.
Yeah.
And I think that's true in any of our lives. And the aspect that I think we struggle with the most is we all want it done now. And don't put the time limits on. And say, okay, here's my only time measure I'm using is that 25-minute segments. Okay. But I'm not saying I have to have this all done by next week. Now, there are things in our lives that sometimes we have to have a time limit. Like, when I was coaching football, I had to have this report done by this day because we have a game coming up on Saturday. Okay. So you work that way. But so much of what we do, the bigger things in our lives, all right, we shouldn't put as many time constraints on that we do. Now, if I'm writing a book and say, okay, I want to, my process is I'm going to do these 3 25-minute segments on a daily basis, but I am going to spend 5 days a week doing this. So I am going to put that type of measurement onto the process.
Right.
And my guess is after a number of weeks, you're going to say, whoa, I got a lot accomplished. Well, what happens is now when you start going into week 3 or week 4 of these 25-minute segments, you're probably going to be more productive in those 25 minutes. You're going to put more words down on a piece of paper because things are starting to flow. All right. I'm getting my organization to it. I know what I want to get out there. And if all of a sudden I hit a day where my first 25 minutes, it's like, I'm having just go back. What did I write already? Let that be the inspiration.
Yeah. You know, that works for somebody who doesn't have ADD or ADHD. So let's but because somebody some of my clients who are struggling with consistency, I think it's one of the biggest things of ADD ADHD. I have ADD, so I have to use a combination of some things. This works, but it only goes so far because I'll do this over and over again, but I have to have a pain point associated with. There has to be an emotional or mental pain point associated with it. Otherwise, my brain won't get activated because my brain does not operate. My brain is not activated by consistency or organization of consistency. My brain is activated by movement or a cause and effect in the environment. So I will probably be more of a kinesthetic learner. So I usually have to dupe myself out. So give me your thoughts because I have an answer to this, but give me your thoughts of refining this process for somebody who has ADD, ADHD.
All right. So you need to move. And here's one thought that comes to mind. Okay. How hard is it to voice record your thoughts?
Right.
As you're going for a walk or exercising, so forth.
Right.
Okay. And I only share that because in all honesty, that's how I write most of my speeches.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
I actually get on the elliptical. Okay. And I keep phone hand, I hit record and I start speaking. And as I do my exercising because my mind, I'm going.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I get done and it's like, play it back and say, yeah, that works. Oh, I don't like that. I want to say that a different way. Boom, boom, boom. I basically have a speech written right there. Okay. And then the next day is I've already kind of rehearsed this thing a little bit. I jump in the pool. I go swim laps. I try to swim laps a few times a week because my knees are at this point where I can't be sitting there running anymore, etc. Swimming is a non-contact in terms of the ground. So I swim, but as I swim, I actually talk to myself. I basically give speeches as I swim.
Yeah.
And it might only be, all right, I'm going to do the first, dozen laps. All I'm going to do is work on the 5-minute opening, so to speak. That's all I'm thinking about. And then I might jump all the way to the end. I wanted to work on the 5-minute, my close. All right. And then later on another day, I might work on some other part of the speech. But for me personally, that helps me get ready to talk.
I like it. That's an instant hack. And then there's that feedback that you get from listening to yourself that adds to that movement that you need in your mind. One of the things that I'm experimenting with is, because I'm doing live recordings, is I'm experimenting with doing live recordings and then transcribing while I'm doing while I'm recording myself live. And then I take that information to ChatGPT and I'm like, ChatGPT, now don't add any fluff to this. Just make this look a little bit better than what it looked right now. And I'm finding amazing results, with regards to how I'm going back and taking that information and putting it into this huge database with regards to sort of writing my books and stuff. So I
love that too. I think those are all, one of the aspects of Larry, I think that you have spelled out is how important is every single person is a little bit different. And knowing that, it's like, okay, Pomodoro, all right, technique is really good for writing. Okay, I know that because I wouldn't have made it through my dissertation without it.
Okay.
However, that's not my preferred method, and I had to tweak some things along the way.
Mm.
All right, for me, and my advisor said set the same kind of time frame every day. Well, for me, that was almost impossible. I knew my schedule. I knew what was capable. So one day it might be mid-morning. The next day it might be late afternoon. Next day it might be in the evening. I wasn't going to worry about that. And they kind of advised me not to worry about it after a while as well, because I was still doing aspects of it. I talked about, with them is like, okay, when I was writing my dissertation, I used to talk through and think about it as I was, on the elliptical. And I get done, and I'd record a few things, or I would just get done. And I would quickly write down everything that came to mind during the course of, my exercise time. There are so many, I think we need to be flexible with ourselves and with others, that not everybody does it exactly the same.
Yeah, I wanted to add, to highlight some things that you're talking about, particularly as it relates to movement. How movement, I know movement is used in like is an aspect of like EMDR therapy. Like the epitome of EMDR therapy is how you process trauma via movement. I believe it's the rapid eye movement. So there's this therapeutic component to movement and processing thoughts at the same time. And I also think there's some research and study around the idea that movement, like going for walks, walking and talking about things, actually helps increase creativity. I'm pretty sure there's research that supports that. So I just wanted to highlight that, a little bit of additional components of what you're talking about there. Like there's more than one thing that's happening when you're moving at the same time. You're sparking creativity. You're actually decreasing probably your anxiety. There's an increase in even the endorphins, feel good emotions that help you have the right attitude and emotional disposition when you're processing thoughts. So,
one of the things I have done is I still do some teaching at adjunct level at a university, and I know to have some students sit for 45 minutes, 50 minutes it doesn't work. Okay. Right. And one of the things I look to do is create a safe space I tell people, all right, if you're one of those individuals, this is nothing bad. And I make sure everybody in the class understands that, I make it okay to say, after 5-10 minutes in between, if you need to stand up and listen and be part of the discussion by standing in the back of the classroom for a minute, okay, as that makes you feel more comfortable, and as you kind of sway back and forth and so forth, go and do it. Don't worry. I'm okay with that. It allows people to say, okay, if I need to get up every once in a while. All right. Not a big deal. Okay. I'll know whether you understand the material. I know whether you're getting there, but we're all going to do it differently. I have some students that could sit there for 2 hours probably and never move. Now, I'm not one of them, but I mean, so I think we need to be cognizant, and this is about providing, goes all the way back, Larry, to a sacred presence. If you're truly present, you have an understanding, you want to learn more. I'm not an expert on all the things that are out there. There's no way in terms of ADD or ADHD or anything like that. I'm not an expert, but I know that all of us learn differently.
Right. Yeah.
And so how can I make it conducive for that person to learn? And if that means they need to, every 10 to 15 minutes, might have to get up and kind of pace in the back of the classroom, go do it.
Yeah.
If that helps you get take it all in better, I'm for it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. There's that notation of people got different learning styles, and how do we help individuals who have different learning styles aside of different emotional challenges. That's what I was going to bring to your attention, but I just don't know. I don't know whether I have much time. I told you I was going to eat up 2 hours of your time, and so hopefully prepared your guns for this now. But in all respect, do you have time to talk about one more thing, and then I'll get out your hairs here.
So let's go for it, Larry. I always
All
love
right.
being in a conversation with you anyway. So
Okay, good. All right. So we talk about the ADD learner. Hold on one second. Let me move, and let me just acknowledge my TikTok people here. Nancy, thank you for the likes. Thank you for the hearts on TikTok here. Appreciate it. I see you out there. Um, um, so one of the topics of interest for me always is individuals with let's say different learning styles. ADHD is a clinical diagnostic for somebody who has a particular type of learning style. But
right.
But the other interest of mine, how do I say this? They're can you in your area, have you ever dealt with someone who struggled with depression? Let me ask it like that.
Oh
Yes.
yeah.
How do you know? How do you know without knowing? How do you know without knowing somebody's struggling with depression?
Oh, well, this is why I'm gonna go all the way back again now to the listening part. You listen with not only your ears, but your eyes and your minds and your hearts and your souls, and you really try to pay attention and listen to ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
And the more questions that I have answered by somebody,
Mm-hmm.
the more I can get a sense of, okay, is this person expressing is there some depression that has happened because of some situations that are occurring in their lives or occurred at a previous time?
Mm-hmm.
Is this person anxious? All right, I'm gonna throw the anxiety part. Are they anxious for something coming up in
Mm-hmm.
their lives? And how do you find those things out? This is the importance of asking questions. Not, you don't come on and say, are you depressed? You ask questions of what else has happened in your life? What are some situations that may have occurred that have you thinking this way in the past, 6 months? And that to me is how, at least personally, like when I was involved with student life, I had a young person sitting in my office that was not doing what they should have been doing.
Mm-hmm.
But through a number of questions, and we started diving into different aspects, they were in essence depressed because after about 15 minutes of different questions and sharing different bits of information, it finally came out. They shared that 2 weeks earlier, a relative was shot and killed in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that told me a lot more as to why maybe some of the things had happened, why they ended up in my office. And now we started talking about, okay, all right, I'm not a professional counselor. And I said, would you, I basically asked the question, would you entertain ever talking with somebody who is about this situation? And thankfully they did. They said, yeah. And I was able to sit there and make the phone call and get the appointment set. And I said, okay, we're going to work through all this system. We're going to look at any consequences for some of your actions. Okay. But that's not the important part. We're going to help you first and foremost. And so Yeah, depression, and that could come. That was a very extreme case, Larry, in
Mhm.
terms of having lost a relative to a shooting, and the scary part about it is I had about a 2 month period where we actually had, I think it was 5 different students on our campus who had lost either a relative or a close friend to a shooting in Chicago. It was,
Oh, wow.
and so now now I end up with experience dealing with this. But to me, what resonated was the importance of asking questions to
Yep.
find out more of the story, and don't jump to conclusions too fast.
Have you ever guided somebody through depression? I mean, I know you're not a mental health counselor, but it's a human experience. Like we've all experienced it.
Yeah,
Settings.
yeah. I mean, there's one person just came to mind, and I continue to stay in conversation with this person in between. They're doing a lot better. But I think there is, you go back to that sacred presence, is taking time to reach out and, ask some questions. Like, hey, what's new and exciting today? Or, how has the last week gone for you? What's some things that have happened during the last week? And then I try to listen to cues as to, all right, what are, I'd ask the question, what are 2 or 3 aspects that have happened last week that you're grateful for? Name something that happened.
Right.
And it could be as simple as, I walked into the store the other day, and this person behind the counter was just so cheerful, and it really made my day. We focus on those gratitude, those positives, and then they would share something else that wasn't. Said, okay, what did you think about during those at that time? What might have contributed to something of that, and just try to talk through some of those things. But I try to be careful, Larry, because I don't want to be, I don't want to be a counselor per se.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want somebody to say, oh, I'm going to Mike because he's going to counsel me. Well, I can guide you.
Right.
But there are professionals like you that, and that's where, when I've seen people who, this is beyond my scope, they need to, and just encourage people, like, this is okay. It's okay to go talk to somebody.
Yeah. The only reason why I mention it, particularly as it pertains to you and what you do, is when somebody. So one of the patterns that is very much a textbook sign of depression is when somebody is perpetually communicating or thinking or has a framework of negativity or hopelessness, right?
Yeah.
Like I gotta be careful with not saying too much, but one of my client cases, I'm constantly I find there is this mesh of both worlds. I have a young professional who can't get out of his head. Long story short, can't get out of his head. All the potential in the world, smartest person in the world, they can't get out of their head. And I think putting them in front of you with regards to having a negative framework, particularly not necessarily doing the clinical aspect of it, but there's a coaching aspect of it where part of the barrier is in a person's negative framework. I think you mentioned combating that, and I think there sometimes people experience depression, they don't even know they are experiencing depression.
Oh, yeah.
They are perpetually negative. They perpetually see their situation as hopeless. They perpetually have this blockage that they can't get past.
Yeah.
And maybe in terms of, as it relates to you and your experience, somebody having a mental blockage that they can't get past, somebody experiencing a limited framework of self, kind of ish. I'm pretty sure you've dealt with that, even though it may not be officially identified as depression.
Right.
But there are those versions that out there. have you ever
Yeah.
dealt with someone with that type of framework where they just have a negative, what they call low self-efficacy? They have the inability to believe that they can accomplish things.
Yeah, and that's where I go back to the gratitude part.
Mm-hmm.
Let's find the aspects in our lives, as many as possible, to be grateful for. Also,
Yeah.
let's look at, if you take athletes, why it's so important to recognize and applaud even the smallest step forward.
Yeah.
So, track coaches are great about this.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I might have an athlete who has finished last in every race they have been in for the
Mm-hmm.
past month.
Yeah.
But yet, during that time, each one of their races, they got better by 1 or 2 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a coach, you applaud those improvements.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, they still lost every race. And if that's all you focused on,
Mm-hmm.
now you're weighing that person down. So
Mm-hmm.
let's find those positives that we can bring out. All right. Somebody in the business world, they're looking, I didn't reach my goal of this many sales for this year. All right. Well, if that's all you worried about,
Mm-hmm.
now, yeah, that's a lot of weight on your shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
However, let's look at, in this week, you did X amount of sales. What a great job there. What helped you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This week you did this. What helped you do that? Okay. You made some great inroads there. Okay. And so now you get the person starting to think about the positives
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to this big negative that's weighing them down.
Yeah. I'm not gonna eat up too much of your time. If I wanted to, I could veer into current topics and get some of your feedback on current topics. But I'm gonna save that for another time. For right now, I'm gonna cap it off for right now. The next time we talk, though, I'm blocking out 2 hours. There's very few people that are blocking out 2 hours for. I'm blocking out 2 hours for you because, first of all, people need to see this type of engagement. I personally think people need to see this type of engagement of open-minded individuals talking candidly about anything. There's just great energy in general. I hope that secondarily they get some valuable content out of it. They get something of value out of it, something to latch on to, whether it be understanding how to communicate using the acronym of CARE, understanding what the concept of emotional residue. It's not just about what you say; it's about how you make people feel, right?
Yeah.
Or the concept that's been permeating the whole conversation, what you call sacred presence, which you just talk when you talk about the two components of that is listening, making sure that you're truly listening to people, and not only that, but making sure that you're asking really good questions about them, about how they think, about how they feel. So, I think that's an overall summary. Is there anything you want to add to that, as far as a last comment to somebody who may find something of substance from this? What's the lasting comment that you can give to them to latch on to?
Larry, in what you talked about in terms of being engaged in conversation, and I talk to people a lot about the willingness to be in the arena, not to be perfect,
Yeah,
not to say I'm going to accomplish all these things, but I'm willing to be in the arena.
yeah,
And too many people nowadays are unwilling to get in the arena. They're unwilling to be in that conversation.
yeah,
When in reality, the conversations and being in the arena can provide so much value for our lives. And I think, I would invite folks, all listeners, all of us, to continue being in the arena, be in the conversations, do it with care,
yeah,
do it, so that, we're clear what we're thinking. We can look at actions and we can be respectful and be empathetic and provide that sacred presence. But we need to be in the arena. And instead of all of a sudden we hear something, and what's a lot of times our first inclination is go stand in the corner and be silent.
Yeah.
Silence has never gotten any individual, any organization, any country moving forward. You need to be willing to have the conversations if we're going to make a difference.
Yeah. Like the last note there, I'm gonna make one final request there. It's like, Larry, stop it. But my last request from you is very basic and very simple, and that's just you start the day out with prayer. I wonder if you could end the podcast with prayer.
Oh, I'd be more than happy. I'd be honored to do that.
All right.
Most Heavenly Father, Son, and Holy Spirit,
Yes.
with thanks for this conversation,
Yes.
a conversation that has enlightened me and hopefully has enlightened others.
Yes.
We ask for your continued guidance as we continue to be in the arena, be in conversation with others,
Yes.
so that we might more perfectly, and never being perfect, but more perfectly spread your goodwill, your great commandment to love you and to love others as ourselves, as we continue going forward, making disciples of all in our presence.
Yes.
And we ask all these things through your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. All right. Mr. Durnin, thank you so much for your presence. Thank you for participating in this and yeah, all that good stuff. Thank you for joining. We'll talk to you later, okay?
Thank you.
All right. All right. Talk to you later, my brother.
All right. Bye-bye.